but before you went to sidetrack me, could you say a little bit more about the inquiry? It's
obvious that they are lining up the fire service to be blamed. I don't know if you saw, but today Danny Cotton was pushed out the door with a golden goodbye. The fire brigade's commissioner, the one who said that, she couldn't plan for an unforeseen event like Grenfell, even though before she became fire commissioner, it was her job to plan for this very event. And she actually produced materials to educate firemen on how to prepare for such an event where it was, wildfire through cladding. But apparently she seems to have forgotten that, and now she's out the door with a golden goodbye. There's loads of things like that with the inquiry. It is looking to be a stitch-up in certain regards. What I have said since the start is that, I'm cautious, I'm cynically optimistic about Martin Morbick, and I always compare him to, McPherson, the chap who did the Stephen Lawrence inquiry, because he was appointed to investigate the police because he was sort of to the right of Hitler in terms of his own personal views, and you can check his voting record in the Lords, and you can see that. This man was, the neoist of neoliberals, back before that was even a proper word for these sorts of people. And yet, when it came down to it, he thought about his place in history and what the right thing to do was, rather than what the thing he was being told to do was. And Morbick has the same choice ahead of him. He can be a Hutton, and he can deliver us, a nonsense report like we got for David Kelly, who somehow managed to, slash both of his wrists when he was dead. If you look at the autopsy report, and very other odd and suspicious circumstances around that, and the way that he was just completely hung out to dry by his employer. He can be a Hutton or he can be a McPherson. And frankly, I know who I'd rather be in history. I wouldn't want to be down as, an arch traitor and a quisling for the rest of my life. And not just for the rest of my life, for the rest of history. So that man has a choice to make at the moment, and it's a very big one. And he's nearing the end of his life, He wants his twilight years to be nice and quiet. He should really be thinking about that at the moment. I certainly would be. And any time I've been in a position like that, as I am now, I think of it that way. It's like, this is too big for me to sort of think that I can piddle about and, half-ass this and, do what's best for me. I've got to do the right thing, not the easy thing. And I hope he sees it the same way. The fire service certainly should be blamed for certain things. To give you an example, I rang 999 at 1:27 a.m. that morning. I got through, I think, at 1:34, and I declared it a major incident on the phone. Because I've dealt with major incident stuff in the past from emergency planning work that I've done. So I know how you say it to them on the phone to make it sound like you're competent, you're someone with authority. And that basically triggers certain things at their end. So all calls get routed to the same 999 centre. It all goes through one of the services, so the police, the ambulance, or the fire service will take everything in the first instance and then dish it out. There's certain things that kick in very quickly that just make the administration of a disaster like that a lot smoother. So the police and I both rang at 1:20 something. I didn't get through because everyone was ringing in the area and I was on hold for minutes. The fireman who was there didn't get, he didn't ring until I think it was 2:30, 3 a.m. So another hour after I rang, and I'm a nobody. I don't know bloody anything about this. I'm not Fireman Sam, he is. And this man, he just basically was like a rabbit in the headlights. Now, is that his fault? I wouldn't say so, because he wasn't qualified to deal with what he was dealing with. He was meant to deal with at most, a 2-engine fire. And that's basically, what's a 2-engine fire? That's a couple of bins downstairs, basically. That is not an inferno with 200 properties. And he just seemed totally out of his depth. But that's not his fault, Individual firefighters are not to blame for what happened at Grenfell. London Fire Brigade is to blame, but London Fire Brigade officers certainly aren't. London Fire Brigade management are, but London firefighters are not. And that's the distinction that's got to be made here. And I find it outrageous that this woman has been pushed out on a golden hello, golden goodbye, because, once again, you fail upwards when you get to those levels, don't you? And, it's like Robert Black, the old TMO chief exec. Immediately after the fire, he stepped aside. He didn't resign as chief executive of the TMO. He stepped aside You know, no, I doubt any job that I've had would ever allow me to do that. So I'm not going to do my job anymore, but I still want paying, and I still want to come in and have the run of all your files, and, you know, to basically cover up all the crap that I may have done in the past. Yes, and I'm saying that, Robert Black. I do believe that you spent the 6 months when you stepped aside covering things up there, because you were absolutely rubbish during your testimony at the inquiry, and you gave yourself away more than once, didn't you, you lying little shitbag? And come at me, join the queue, please do. You know, I genuinely believe that's what he did, and you know, he got away with it. God knows what she's been paid to shut up about now. I guarantee you she's signed a confidentiality agreement, you know, so she probably won't be able to tell us legally. Even though confidentiality agreements are not supposed to be used anymore and are technically illegal. I bet you she signed one, and I bet you they'll enforce it. Because it's one law for them and one law for us.
Okay, Joe, thank you so much for the talk, the answers, and I mean, I think we should get you back up again. Well, I think we should stop anyway, because I don't think we need to be adding any more people to the queue of who's in the queue to sue. Okay.
And yes, those are all my personal opinions. They're no one else's, so come at me.
Great, okay, so moving on, just saying that. So, moving on. So our next speaker is Cindy Reedman, Chair of Save Our Homes, LS26 campaign. So just a little quick bit of information about what LS26 campaign is. Cindy's going to talk about it, but this is basically a community that is fighting to save 70 homes that are threatened by their landlord, who is a private investment company called Pemberton. The community is in Alton, south of Rothwell, and effectively this is a coal board estate that in the 1980s, when the coal industry was being nationalised and dismembered, a lot of the coal board housing was sold off to ground rent and land speculator type companies, and through the years Pemberton has become the landlord and has been waiting a long time and is now seeking to redevelop the estate, build private housing for sale, which would mean that the community would be left homeless. So Cindy, if you'd like to tell us everything about what's going on. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Like Stuart said, we live on a small estate of 70 houses in Alton, Leeds 26. What remains of a larger estate built in the 1950s after. Going on from what Joe said, they are prefab houses that were put up after the war because everybody needed houses for the mining community, which was prevalent in the area at the time. Some of the homes are still occupied by ex-miners and their families. The houses are what's known as Airy Homes. They were designed and built by a Leeds man, Edwin Airy, and they are prefab homes. We live in a very close-knit community. We look out for each other, we support each other. My family's lived there for 14 years. My children have grown up there. My youngest son is now 16. He's known nowhere else. That's the only home he's known. He suffers with anxiety, and the thought of making him leave his home fills me with dread of how it will affect him. We've built friendships. We know we can rely on our neighbours if we need be. Some of them are very elderly now. They've lived in their homes for over 60 years. They've brought their families up there. Why should they be forced out of their homes? The stress of it could probably kill them. Our homes are private let. They were sold on by the coal board in the 80s, like Stuart mentioned. The rents are affordable for the community. The people who live there are retired people, elderly people, young couples with young children, single parents, people who work for the public sector. Some people work for the health service, some people work in education. They're on low incomes. They are in all respects social housing, although they are owned by the private sector. In September 2017, we received through our doors a small A5 leaflet. It was delivered on a general leaflet drop. It came with pizza delivery leaflets and everything else. And a lot of the people, a lot of the residents threw it in the bin. They didn't even notice it. It informed us about a meeting being held at our local sports centre, and it described briefly about a refurbishment of the estate. On attending this so-called consultation, I use the word, I don't know, it wasn't a consultation.
It was a con.
Yeah. Residents soon became aware that the new houses that were proposed were not for the rental market. The nice pictures that they gave were large 3-4 bedroom houses, and I use that word loosely, large, they weren't large. Executive homes for sale. And on asking one of the representatives that was there what was to become of us, she basically just shrugged her shoulders at me. She couldn't tell us what was going to happen. We were asked to fill out questionnaires at this consultation, but we are yet to receive any answers from those questionnaires. Pemberston, our landlord, is a large investment company. Our head office is in Worcester. The estate is run by a letting agent, Watson's, which are in Leeds. And they've treated us with contempt from day one, refusing to meet us until they were badgered to do so by the council, by council members, and even at that meeting they still didn't have any answers for us. They've issued statements that the work will be carried out over many years and no one will be forced to move, but they've lied to us so many times we just don't trust them anymore. They're only interested in making money. During the course of our campaign, we've discovered that they paid off the loan that they had to buy the estate, using our rent money, of course, to do this, just before they put in the application to demolish the houses and put the planning application in. The same company also own a tower block in Manchester that has the same type of cladding as Grenfell Tower.
Is it the one we?
The residents have been fighting a legal battle against them for the cost of the removal of this cladding. They wanted the residents to pay for it to make their home safe. They claim that they've maintained our estate over the 18 years that they've owned it, but residents tell a different story. We have to wait weeks, sometimes months, for basic repairs to be done. There's basically been a managed decline of our estate over the past few years. Another claim made for them is that the houses have come to the end of their life. At a recent housing meeting in Leeds, I met Hilary Ben, and I told him this, and his reply to that was, "But you haven't come to the end of your life." They say that they're not energy efficient anymore, and that's why they need to demolish them and build nice, brand new, spanking houses that will be energy efficient, but we refute this. With some general repairs, fitting double glazed windows throughout, replacing old wooden doors, fitting energy efficient fires and boilers, our homes will be fit for many years to come. They also state that we are a transient community, but the majority have lived in their homes for over 5 years. And the new residents that have moved in have expressed a wish to live there long term. And incidentally, they've not been informed of the planning information when they've moved in. They've been fobbed off and told that this won't happen for many years. We're treated like second-class citizens because we rent our homes. Not everyone is in a position to buy a house. Why should you not be expected to live in your house for a lifetime just because you rent? Private landlords have the ability to give you 8 weeks notice to leave your home. We've been told by the council housing team that even with the highest priority, the wait for a 3-bedroomed house in our area is 72 weeks. This is without our 70 families being added to that list. Our campaign got up and running in September 2017. It's been running for nearly 2 years now. We've made a deputation to full council in November 2017. We've been in touch with local and national media. We've got an online petition, a paper petition. Our local councillors have supported us, but unfortunately we lost our Labour councillor recently in the local elections, although she still is working for us behind the scenes and supporting us. We've taken part in National Heritage Days because there are a lot of people in this country that believe our type of houses should be of heritage value. We've had visits from people to the estate to look at the houses and the design of them, and they all believe that they should be preserved. Not only just because of the houses, but also because of their links with the mining community in the area. We run social media accounts. We have a Twitter account, a Facebook account and a web page. And we've gained support far and wide. Recently, on May the 30th, the Plans Panel meeting was held in the Civic Hall. And we believe that that would decide our future one way or another, and we'd know which way we were going. But unfortunately, at the meeting, after 3 hours of deliberating, they decided that they were going to defer the decision. Some of the reasons that they gave, we believe, were reasons that they could have turned down the planning application. These include the style of the houses and the layout, the garden sizes and the need for so many 4-bedroomed houses that they want to build, the impact on the community, the heritage of the houses and the significance of it, the sustainability, which includes the carbon footprint. And we know from doing a bit of research, we've seen articles recently, that the carbon footprint is far more for building a new estate than actually refurbishing old houses. So we're hoping that we can get some more information on that and take it back to the council. We need to go back to panel members with the answers to all these questions so that hopefully things go in our favour. Living with this for nearly 2 years now has had a great impact on the whole community. People's physical and mental health has suffered greatly. We love our homes and we don't want to move. During our campaign, we've learnt of several very similar campaigns around the country. It's nothing short of social cleansing and gentrification. There's a national housing crisis and the shortage of affordable social houses. Councils should be doing their utmost to keep people in their homes, not allowing big businesses to put profit before people. Objections can still be added to the planning application while we are awaiting a new date. And if you know of anyone with expertise in areas mentioned by the Plans Panel, please get in touch with us, especially on the heritage and the carbon footprint aspects. Write to your local councillors and your MPs objecting to this proposal. And hopefully most of you will be able to join us outside the Civic Hall when we get another date for our planning meeting and hold a big objection outside. We had one last time we had the planning meeting, but we're hoping next time that we're going to get lots more people attending. So thank you for listening. That is about us. So hopefully.
Just take a few questions for Cindy before we introduce the next speaker. Any questions about the campaign and what can be done? Yeah.
Have you had any inquiries that either houses could be brought up to environmental standards or how refurbishment could take place?
We've had a little bit of advice. We haven't actually had a survey done ourselves. Pemberton in the planning application had a survey done, but they only surveyed 4 houses out of 70. One of which was a house that had suffered some quite bad flood damage during the cold winter when we had the beast from the east. It had some cracked pipes and they didn't actually come and fix those pipes for weeks and weeks and weeks. So there was quite a lot of damage in that house, and that was one of the ones that they chose to survey. They've said that there's faults in the concrete pillars that are used in the housing, but there isn't anything to prove that that's correct. And like I said, we haven't actually had a survey done because it costs a lot of money. And then we'd have to raise a lot of money to pay for that.
Any more questions? Okay, great. Joe.
I just had one. You see your local councillors and that, you mentioned one, you said, who's still working with you.
Yeah.
How many of them live in the area?
All of them, I believe, live locally, yeah.
Locally? On the estate?
No, not on the estate, no.
Funny that, isn't it?
No.
isn't it? You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing the Chinese did. You remember the Millennium Bug? Remember, and everyone thought that everyone was doomed, right? Chinese were worried about planes falling out of the sky 31st of December 1999. So they passed a law. They said that the executives of all of the airline companies had to be in the air on the 31st of December at midnight. You see, and it's that, you see, that's it. So it's a risk you're willing to take, is it? You know, and look at that. You know, I guarantee you that no planes in the world were looked at as thoroughly as those ones, because, you know, it was their asses on the line. I just wish we could do that more often in this country, and just in general, where people who make the decisions are the ones who have to sit with the consequences of them, rather than swanning off, you know, and leaving it to the rest of us to clean up the mess that they have now made. But yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay. Thank you, Cindy. So just to sort of underline, I think what the campaign needs next, when the next planning meeting takes place, to maybe reconsider or to get a new planning application or revised planning application from Pemberston, I think it'd be absolutely fantastic if we could get everyone in this room to come to a protest, because we know that the councils are feeling the pressure. They're really feeling the pressure of the spotlight, the pressure, and the kind of like the idea that they are going to condemn 70 households and their homes and community will be lost through their decision is putting pressure on them. And I think the more people that come out and the more people that actually are willing to show that this decision is going to really, you know, be scrutinised and be very public, and there's going to be a big media backlash about it, I think that could tip that decision, because the councils do not need to approve something just because the council officers tell them they should do it. The councillors can refuse, and they can leave it to an appeal, and that appeal delays the inevitable, but the inevitable is in the future. And as we know, 2007-2008 financial crisis, that changed a lot of things, and they do tend to come around fairly regularly. So I think it's important that we try to mobilise people for these kinds of decisions. So I'll ask Cindy, as soon as you know,
Yeah, well.
let's get the emails out to everyone and see if we can mobilise everyone. Yeah.
During the council meeting, during the planning meeting, we did you sort of get a feeling, and I got a feeling that there were at least 4 or 5 of the panel members that did want to refuse it, and then it was put that they should be deferring it because there were more information needed, and then it was voted 5-4 to defer it. We have had a reply from one of the councillors saying that he thought they voted to defer it because of the media coverage and they didn't want to make a decision in front of the cameras. I don't know how they think it's going to be any different next time, because if anything, there's going to be more people there, hopefully, and more media there. So I don't know how that comes about, but anyway, yeah.
Okay.
Did they say they were whipped for that decision? So, like, you know, they had to vote on party lines?
I don't think so, no, because
Try and get one of them.
we have tweeted them, we have emailed them, they know absolutely everything. We are constantly on their backs about things that we know they could turn it down on.
Because that's actually illegal for them to do. So if, like, the Labour ones are told to all vote a particular way, or the Conservative ones are, you get them that way.
Andy?
I think it'd be good if you did before, when you got the date, published a list of Labour councillors who explicitly support you, the ones that haven't got back to you, and the ones who
Yeah.
are against it, so we can lobby them.
Right.
And that would be useful. I think you should publish that. That's okay.
Okay.
Right.
Great. So that's the idea of identifying the councillors that support you and that have not declared a support.
What we've recently started doing is, because we were mostly concentrating on the councillors that we knew were on the panel, but actually on the day there was a substitute councillor came onto the panel who hadn't had all our emails and tweets and things. So what we've started to do now is absolutely just bombard every single councillor with it. And they do. We've had meetings with councillors and they say they're supporters and they don't want to pass it, but you get the age-old thing of, oh, we've got to look at planning rules and we can't just turn it down because of the community, and why don't people matter?
Yeah.
That's what I want to know.
I mean, it is true. The squeaky hinge gets the oil. You know, is an adage that you should really remember for these things. The more hassle, you make what you want them to do less hassle than what they want to do, and then your path is the one that's chosen. You've got no other way of doing it. So just always keep that in mind.
Great. Thanks, both of you. So, go on very quickly.
The link between two speakers for me is the position of older people, people with vulnerabilities, disabilities, living with disability or dementia. There were people in Grenfell Tower who Leeds one
Yeah. Yeah.
houses if they've got particular housing need because of disability or children.
Yeah.
We've emphasised a great deal about housing and the fire brigade and cabin and so on, but what about people's social care and health and social care needs?
Mm.
And I wondered if you could approach people, social services now called adults and health and needs, to ask them to assess individuals who would agree to that for their housing needs. Because I think we could probably request quite a number of assessments.
Yeah.
They deserve that consideration.
Yeah. It's not something that we have done, but yeah, it could be something that we do follow up on with that, because we have. I mean, the council during the planning process did do an equality and diversity survey. We haven't. It was published in the report from the planning officer, in the planning officer's report. So yeah, there is. That could be something that we could follow up, yeah. 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 Right. Okay.
Great, that's a really great idea. So we've had
Yeah.
quite a few good ideas there. Thank you very much. So, as I did warn you, I am not very good at chairing. So we are now 15 minutes behind, which has quite perilous consequences given what I said about 9 o'clock. So Steve Skinner is our next speaker from Little London. Steve, I don't actually have a lot of time to introduce you, but Steve's been a long-standing resident of Little London Estate. Little London is on the edge of the city centre. The estate was built in the 60s and 70s and a little bit of the 80s. As a council estate. Since 2001, it has been going through a very long-term saga as part of a PFI regeneration scheme. You can read more about it, obviously, in this book. I did quite a lot of research there myself a few years ago. It's just important to underline that the council announced that Little London would be on a regeneration programme under PFI in 2001. It took 12 years for the contract to finally be signed. There's been over £100 million of investment in the estate since 2013, but now residents are starting to mobilise again over many different issues. So, Steve, if you want to just briefly outline what all those are. Okay. Thank you very much.
Right, okay, thanks. First, I'd like to say Little London and Grenfell do have quite a bit in common. Both council estate enclaves that are situated on the edge of residential or commercial land, which have very high property values. Grenfell in the borough of Kensington city centre, and both are working class estates of low income housing and bring together people of diverse cultures and backgrounds. And both recently, well, for a long time actually, have been singled out for different types of private sector driven regeneration. And in case of Grenfell, it's KCTMO, some form VALMO, and in Little London's case, we've got PFI, the Private Finance Initiative. And in both cases, tenants have been ridden over roughshod, their opinions ignored. Local politicians have attempted to silence tenants whilst driving through market-based solutions for years and years of underinvestment and neglect. In Little London, not with quite the same tragic consequences as Grenfell, but things don't bode very well. So, going back a little bit to Little London's regeneration, it all began a long time ago, as Stuart just said. I think we first heard plans of PFI about 20 years ago, around the year 2000. Everyone smelt a rat, basically, from the onset. Situated as we are, on the cusp of the city centre, we knew that developers were eager, profit-hungry developers were eager for this land, and we also knew that they were going to extract a hefty price for the capital invested in this project. And we weren't wrong either. Once the scheme got into motion, and we started to see the plans that were being gradually filtered out, we saw that the PFI involved demolition of 150 homes on our estate and the selling off of tower blocks in the Oatlands and the Lovels for private development. So basically, it's everything you can expect from PFI, really. Land grab and gentrification. We didn't sit down and take this, of course. We swung into action. We got a campaign going. We demanded a vote from the council, which surprisingly we were granted. And we campaigned and campaigned, went out door to door, talking to people, what they expected, what they feared. And a vote was taken, and we won it fair and square. There was a high turnout. We had a significant majority. In fact, the turnout was 67%. And for an area where usually in local elections, you're lucky if you get 20% turnout, that really says something about the strength of feeling in the area. So, yeah, we won the vote. The council were, however, weren't prepared to actually accept the result of the vote. Within a few months, they'd redrawn the boundary of the PFI, cutting out most of the no-voting areas. They'd issued some promises that there would be no large-scale demolitions, be forced a second ballot through on a much reduced majority, and managed to get it through. So there you go, that's democracy in action. And anyway, so the story doesn't end there, basically. We carried on once the vote had gone the wrong way. This took a whole long period of time. It went on for years. We campaigned to stop the demolitions of 3 level tower blocks. Successfully, we got refurbished fully in 2008. We also managed to get the council to agree to like-to-like replacement of socially rented housing for those that were demolished. So at the end of the day, we kind of broke even, more or less, which was a victory, even though we didn't manage to defeat the PFI. But, that isn't the end of the story. When the regeneration work was completed in the year 2014, really, we had very little to show for it. Very little that actually matched up to the sales hype that accompanied PFI. And, we had banners, sort of all over the estate from the council saying things like 180 million reasons to vote PFI. And, at the end of the day, it's done very little to improve the quality of our homes. Tenants in the newly built homes, through, the PFI consortium, complaining of terrible work standards. And the work carried out on the existing stock, really, that's the main tower blocks around Little London, apart from the Lovels, which were saved from PFI. All they really got, different from us, was some cheap cladding, some cheap, badly fitting cladding. It was a cheap cosmetic job. We were all left with the same malfunctioning lifts that we had before the refurbishment, and little else, really. So, moving on a little while, to go back 2 years to the Grenfell tragedy, it's not surprising that when it happened, everyone was panicked, particularly those people living in the blocks that received cladding. Meetings were held. I think we had the first tenants meeting we had after Grenfell. There weren't enough seats in the room. People wanted answers. The council did start to provide answers, but not very satisfactory ones. They just reassured us that the cladding used in Little London wasn't the same material that we used on the Grenfell cladding. But, how sure can we be of that, really? I read a report a year ago which stated basically that, the different forms of cladding had not really been tested under real-world conditions, so assurances are simply not good enough. We don't know. There has not been a truly independent safety audit on any of the newly fitted homes with cladding in Little London. And worse than that, we're all still waiting for sprinkler systems. So far, Leeds City Council have made a commitment to fit all of the city's tower blocks with sprinkler systems, but the government is doing nothing at all to release funding. Progress is abysmally slow. So far in Little London, we've only got one tower block out of 9 which has got a sprinkler system. And this is seriously alarming. If anyone read the Yorkshire Evening Post a couple of weeks ago, no, obviously about a month ago, sorry, there was a fire in Lovell Park Heights. The whole building had to be evacuated. This was a fire on the 10th floor, sparked by faulty electrics, a malfunctioning microwave oven apparently. And there were no serious injuries. There was some, smoke inhalation, etc. It was quite a dramatic scene. We had 2 fire engines in the vicinity. The whole area was cordoned off. Nobody was hurt, but it could have been much, much, much worse. And surprisingly, going back to the PFI, which the council sold us on the basis that we were getting this wonderful deal, which they called Decency Plus, it was far better than the deal that we got through normal council funding in the Lovells. Rather than a cheap cosmetic deal, we should have started not from the outside, making the place look fancy. We should have started from inside and made the places safe and secure. We should already... And on top of yearly increases leading up to this, we're getting a situation now where there's almost like a £10 differential between PFI finance stock and non-PFI finance stock. This is like a divided community, really, that we're trying to create. It's not good. And it's funny, really, because going back years, when we're out in the streets campaigning against the PFI, we made all kinds of warnings. We said rents could rise. We were called scaremongers. We were also called scaremongers for suggesting that PFI was a form of privatisation. And so this is, cutting to the chase, coming to the present now. Amidst our, area, our council land, NG, one of the main building firm at the heart of the PFI consortium, are planning to build a private block of 155 apartments in the middle of our estate on a piece of green land that we refer to as the Mound. And we're against this development on multiple grounds. Firstly, it's going to be an environmental nightmare. London is already one of the most densely populated areas of Leeds. There are very few open spaces, and gradually we're suffering the encroachment of private mega developments which are dwarfing our homes and dominating our skyline. The development on the Mound is going to require the removal of 51 mature trees, which act as an important sound and air quality insulator from the busy city centre. And in a city which has recently declared climate emergency, we regard this as being, completely unacceptable. The loss of trees, trees which absorb CO2 and provide clean air, is just not on at all. We're also concerned about pressure on local amenities, such as schools and GP surgeries. These are currently stretched to breaking point. And to add to that, we were all dismayed when we went through the plans and saw that this 155 flat private development is going to have a maximum of 20 parking bays. And, Little London, it's already one of the areas of Leeds with the highest level of parking violations in the city. This isn't going to improve things. To make one thing clear, this isn't NIMBYism. We're not just complaining about this because of our views or anything like that. People in Little London are living in extremely cramped conditions. There are often families of 5 living in corner flats that desperately need to be rehoused. But the proposed flats in Little London are aimed at young professionals at market rents few Little Londoners could even dream of affording. And do nothing at all to solve the city's housing problems. So anyway, we've been campaigning against this since the beginning of the year. We've been outdoor knocking and petitioning and found that few people were even aware of the application due to the complete absence of any kind of meaningful consultation. When door knocking, however, we found that everyone on the estate was totally unanimous in opposition to this thing. We've now got 60 tenants to submit online objections on the council's planning application site. We've lobbied councillors and MPs who have expressed support. We've held protest picnics on the mound, that's a threatened piece of land. Now, if you ever walk past the area, you'll notice now that it's actually strewn with banners and placards, saying developers not welcome here, or save our green space. We've set up a Facebook group. Anyone here who might be interested in the campaign and may even want to support us or offer suggestions, if you go onto Facebook and just check out London Solidarity, it will have information about the campaign, along with other local issues and things that we're also fighting about. So we do need all your help here, anyone who can help us, because developers are hard people to defeat. They have a lot of money behind them. And also this campaign, it's not going to be the last, we don't think, this mound. We've heard rumours about private developments on other parts of the estate, and apart from the unwelcome developments, we're still fighting on the ground of fair rents and for fire safety. And anyone really who would like to chat to me after this meeting and find out more about the campaign, I'm welcome to chat to you.
Great.
Thank you.
So, because Steve's very generously offered to speak to people outside of the meeting, let's take him at his word, and because we're really on the edge of time. So now I'm going to invite Alex Webster from Acorn, Leeds. If you want to come up, Alex? Yeah, take the mic. So Alex is going to briefly, very briefly, introduce Acorn, the new renters union, which is sweeping the country, and tell us a bit about what it's all about in about 5 minutes. In exactly 5 minutes.
Hi everyone, so I'm Alex, I'm from Acorn Leeds. As Acorn, we describe ourselves as a membership-based community organisation and union. Think about it in terms of what your trade union does for you at work, we're trying to bring into the community. It originally started in Bristol in 2015, and its main focus is building power and helping people to claim their economic rights. Whilst we're not limited to it, one of the main areas in which we work is around tenants' rights and organising tenants. So we started in Leeds, we did kind of a soft start, trying to get things together about this time last year maybe, I think it was, and we really kicked off at the beginning of this year. I work around tenant stuff, usually involves people coming to us, contacting us with various issues they're having with their homes, their landlords or their letting agents. We've received quite a few cases so far locally, but nationally as well. Like Stuart said, it's a massively growing organisation. So we hear stories of just homes in horrible states of disrepair. One off the top of my head, for example, is I think it was Sheffield. A family of about 5 was left in a home with the kitchen completely ripped out for about 4 months or something before Acorn got involved, got them to join as members and took direct action, which is a main tactic of basically going to the letting agent, going to the landlord, not letting them hide from them and going, what are you doing? Fix this. We're not going away until you do it. It goes back to what Joe was saying about the power of shame and embarrassment. It's one of our main tools to be able to get landlords, letting agents, anyone managing property to be held accountable for what they're doing, is shine a light on them. Don't let them hide, bring them to account. Last week we had a victory in Leeds, which was a case of a house of 5 people, essentially being put at risk of homelessness with 2 weeks' notice because their letting agent had made a mistake in their contract and tried to let them a house that wasn't actually going to be empty. And they were getting nowhere with it. The letting agent was trying to show them around completely inadequate housing, while also breaking lots of rights to a quiet life for all the other tenants that they were just walking in on and stuff like that. So it was a complete mess. As soon as we got in contact with it, we got them to join, the tenants to join Acorn. And as soon as we did that, we were able to represent them and work with them. Turns out, as soon as you say, we will take direct action against you if you don't solve this problem immediately, letting agent, I think, how quickly was it, Luke?
It was in an afternoon.
Yeah, in an afternoon, got back and go, yeah, don't worry, we sorted it. Here's all their money back, here's all their fees, here's the deposit. Managed to get them released from the contract, and they were able, with that money, they managed to get back, able to sign up for a new property and, not be homeless. You don't have to be a tenant to get involved in Leeds Acorn. Like I said, it's a community organisation. We are looking at focusing mainly on tenant stuff, but we are more than willing to explore different things. Like Sheffield have done stuff around bins, rubbish, refuse, stuff like that. Buses as well might be a big issue coming on public transport. You can join online at acorntheunion.co.uk. .org.uk, and we're on Facebook as well, under Acorn Leeds. We always need people who are willing to knock on doors, to deal with casework, to help people out. If anyone's interested, we'll be hanging around at the end, so you can come talk to us. And yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. I believe that we've ended the meeting on a high. Obviously, there's been a lot of let's be honest, it's a very depressing environment. It's a very depressing set of issues and events. The origins of all this go back many decades, and I thought it'd be really interesting to see how we can put these different campaigns together. So we've got the Grenfell, the kind of politically learning from Grenfell, everything that happened and how people are or not managing to hold all of that to account. We've got the local campaigns that are very different, they're looking at different aspects of the problem, but seeing how we can sort of bring them together and see what Acorn, for example, could do in Alton would be an interesting sort of combination. So, some kind of community-based organisation that takes direct action, but also isn't to shame, isn't to sort of exposing the commercial interests behind what's going on. I think Pembrokeshire does not like being seen as some, ruthless profiteering entity. They've got a very nice fluffy website where they talk about how they like to work in collaboration with everyone. So these are the kind of ideas we can play on for the future. What I'm going to do is I'm going to gather everyone's emails together. I'm going to send some information around about all the different campaigns that we're talking about tonight and propose a follow-up meeting in the future where we do something more practical about how we could support each of these different groups in the future. Okay? So, it's now nearly 5:02. We know what that means. So, what I'd like to do now is I'd like to get everyone who wants to be in this photograph. You're going to be in it, don't worry. Do you think we should do it outside of here, in there? Yeah. No, we should do it in here.
I think you should do it in here.
Let's do it in here then. So,